2nd, 2021 Anacortes City Council meeting. Ms. Hunt, would you take the roll?
Mr. Carter, Mr. Young, Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mayor Gear,
Yes, Ms. Moulton.
I would like to move to excuse Councilmember Young from this evening's meeting. He's not feeling up to par.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. So that brings us to item 3 on our agenda, and 3A is the police chief confirmation and swearing in. So this evening, council, I ask you to confirm my appointment of Dave Floyd as our police chief. Captain Floyd has accepted the promotional offer of employment following a recruitment process that included a screening interview, a panel interview, a meet and greet with police stakeholders and police department staff, and finally an interview with myself. Captain Floyd has competed for this position following a statewide recruitment process. Captain Floyd has been employed by the city police department since 2000 and is well qualified for this demanding position. And at this time, I will ask for your discussion and or action.
Mayor Gear,
Mr. Miller.
with no discussion, I move to approve the appointment of Chief Floyd as police chief for the city of Anacortes.
Mayor Gear.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, I will ask Chief Floyd to join me, and I'm going to swear him in. Well, congratulations, Chief Floyd and the Anacortes Police Department. You're an incredible department, and you have a leader that will take care of you and lead you, and we're proud of all of you, and we embrace the whole department. Thank you for being here this evening, and what a fine day for Anacortes to have another new chief of police who is going to stand on the shoulders of those chiefs before him and take care of us. Okay. So if you'd like to join Chief Floyd outside the council chambers and continue your congratulations, we'll get on with the council meeting and you can celebrate a little bit. Thank you all for being here. Good night. Thanks for being here. So at this time, I'd like to go to item 3B, which is our COVID-19 update. And as of August 2nd, the CDC has issued a new recommendation that everyone, regardless of vaccination status, should wear a mask in public indoor spaces where disease transmission is substantial. This is where there are more than 50 new cases per 100,000 residents over the last 2 weeks. Per CDC data, this includes Skagit County. Skagit County currently has a case rate of 100.4 cases over the last 14 days. In accordance with this new guidance, masks are again required in all city facilities, regardless of vaccination status. The Skagit County health data, as of August 2nd, since March of 2020, we've had 5,547 COVID cases. We've had 79 fatalities in the county and 382 people hospitalized. In Washington State, there are 475,881 cases and 6,127 people have died from COVID-19 in our state. Rising cases are a great concern. The Delta variant is predominant strain in Washington and is far more transmissible than the other variants that we've seen. In just 1 week alone, our case rate in Skagit County has increased by 57.5, by that many cases, 57.5 cases. Our hospitalization rate is also increasing. The populations of people ages 12 to 34 are less likely to be vaccinated, and we're seeing a greater percentage of positive and probable cases here in Skagit and across the state in this age group. COVID-19 vaccines are proving to be effective and will continue to be the absolute best tool to stop the spread of COVID-19. If you're looking for a vaccine provider near you, the best place to start is your local pharmacy or our Safeway here in town. Most chain and neighborhood pharmacies carry COVID-19 vaccines, and pop-up vaccine clinics are available to anyone 12 years old and older, and no appointment is needed. This week's clinics put on by the Skagit County Health Department, starting tomorrow at Cascade West Apartments in Mount Vernon from 5 to 7 p.m. Also tomorrow, the Burlington Night Out from 5 to 8 p.m. Wednesday, August 4th, Immaculate Conception School from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also on Wednesday, Skagit Transit Station in Mount Vernon from 5 to 9 p.m. And on Thursday at the Skagit Valley YMCA from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. A total of 153,980 vaccine doses have been administered in Skagit County so far. This means that 64.9% of all Skagitonians 12 years of age and older are partially vaccinated against COVID-19, and 55.1% are fully vaccinated. And that concludes my COVID-19 update for this evening. Are there any comments or questions?
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
I think I also saw that a pop-up clinic will be offered during the Arts Festival this coming weekend for vaccinations. Ms. Cleland-McGrath, do you have any other details on that?
Yeah, I was just trying to look that up. I believe Island Hospital is putting that on because they always have a tent there.
Okay, well, very good, right at the festival itself. That's incredible. Good. All
Mayor
right.
Gear,
Mr. McDougall.
I had a question and maybe like to spur a little bit of discussion since we're probably looking at the next 4 to 6 or 8 weeks at a big Delta surge, and we're already all up here in masks. Should we maybe consider doing a few weeks of City Council back remotely over video, if nothing else, to not have to sweat inside of our masks most of the evening?
Okay. What are other people's thoughts on that? Or are there requirements from the governor, Marcia, that we?
We are not required to have an in-person component
Okay.
at this point.
All right. All right, so, Mr. Miller.
We are set up, though, that we can do that, right? So if council members want to do that,
Yep,
I
we're
wouldn't.
set up that if council members can attend remotely, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Mayor Gear, I think we should simply encourage people to participate remotely because we do need to make sure that the tech is ready for that and that it's able to support the hybrid meeting model.
Okay.
We have 2 council members not here tonight. Maybe one or both of them could participate remotely, or anybody else. We have found that our committee meetings need to be hybrid in order to support this meeting being hybrid if the committee meeting is right before this meeting. So we can't be running back and forth to make both of those work. But I think I would simply just encourage people to participate from home if they want, and maybe depending on the agenda. If there's no public comment on the agenda and it's a short meeting, maybe we just call in.
Okay. So I will come here, and if anyone that wants to attend remotely can attend remotely. And we'll do it that
Okay.
way. Yes, Mr.
That works.
McDougall.
Should we, it's probably too soon, or we probably don't need to worry about it for now, but should we at some point, if we are doing quite a bit of remote, consider altering the rule around the number of remote meetings like an individual can attend? So we can revisit that perhaps in a few weeks.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right, anything else on that? All right, then we'll move on to item 3C. It's our Finance Committee discussion.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
We received a presentation from Waste Management. They're back. They would like us to consider 3 changes to our agreement with them for recycling and yard waste pickup. One is a $2 a month increase in the rate for recycling. I think it's safe to say that rate increase wasn't well received by our committee, simply because we don't see a compelling justification for a mid-contract rate increase. They're also looking for a change in the price inflator to the CPI for water, sewer, garbage, which we see as largely just a reasonable change and with a non-obvious impact on the rate. And then they're also looking for a contamination charge, which would be new for recycling, so that if users are putting substantial amounts of non-recyclable materials in their recycling bins, they could receive a contamination charge. And Waste Management indicates that they've got cameras on the trucks so they can see precisely what's in the bin as it's being dumped into their trucks. And they typically will red tag your bin if you've put some non-recyclable components in there. We did emphasize that Waste Management needed to be a little bit more aggressive with education, because we asked for that and really not seen a mailer or anything like that since we adjusted their contract to change the allowed recycling components. And we suggested that they participate in our quarterly magazine, that they get a page and fill it with whatever educational materials they would like about what components of the waste stream are now recyclable and were previously and now aren't. And they said that they would work on that, but probably not for this coming issue, maybe for the next one. But I think we see that as sort of a prerequisite for any kind of contamination charge. And they usually do warnings, the red tags, and it's a couple of warnings before you get a contamination charge. We could work out some of those details. But I think we were generally receptive to the concept because making sure that the things in the recycle bin are actually recyclable is pretty key to getting recycling to work. And that was the only thing we covered in the Finance Committee this last week.
And then finally, we have the Public Works Committee.
Mayor Gear?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Public Works Committee met just prior to this meeting. It was Mr. Walters and I and Mr. Buckenmeyer and additional staff from the water treatment plant. We talked about the upcoming potential transfer of the Fidalgo Island water system to the City of Anacortes water system. Currently, the PUD purchases water from the City of Anacortes and sells it to their customers on South Fidalgo Island. So if the city takes it over, it will result in lower fees for those customers as well as better service because we're closer and able to have better emergency response, and it just seems to make sense from an infrastructure perspective. Before that happens entirely, the PUD has agreed to complete 3 major projects prior to the transfer. There's a couple of old reservoirs that will be abandoned, and one will be replaced, and also some asbestos concrete pipeline replacement. So those projects should take about 2 years and are estimated to cost about $1.5 million. So those will be completed before the city would take over that system. It will be coming to council. There's the memorandum of agreement the staff has been working hard on for quite a long time, and the PUD has approved it as of July 27th, and it will be in the council packet for next week. So August 9th, we will look at that and vote to approve it or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing we talked about was chlorine. The question was brought up, how is our chlorine backup supply? And we were assured that it's very good right now. The hypochlorite, the storage capacity is based on its degradation rate, so it doesn't keep forever. But we currently have a really good supply, and the supplier that was offline due to some kind of, I can't remember, an electrical issue at the plant is back online. There is an 11-cent per gallon increase in the cost for the remainder of the contract with them. That contract ends at the end of this month, and then it will go back out to bid. So we're looking good in that regard also. And that was it for today. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, any comments on that? So at this time, we'll go to public comment. And is there anyone in the audience who would like to talk to the council about anything that is not on the agenda this evening? And if so, you may come up to the podium. And no one's online, so we'll move on from public comment. And then we have our consent agenda, number 5, A through F.
Mayor Gear?
Through G, excuse me. Yes, Ms. Moulton.
I would like to pull item 5C.
RC, okay.
And then move to approve items 5A, B, D, E, F, and G.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda except for item C. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ms. Bolton, 5C.
So 5C is an application that I have submitted on behalf of my business.
So you're going to excuse yourself.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Thanks.
got it.
Mayor
So,
Gear,
Mr. Miller.
move to approve agenda item 5C.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, a second by Ms. Clayla McGrath to approve item 5C. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So at this time, we're going to go to other business. Item 6A, and this is a police department update by Chief Dave Floyd. Welcome, Chief. And this is a discussion item this evening.
Enough practice, I'll get this. Mayor Gear and members of council, I come tonight to give you an update on the agreement between the City of Anacortes and the Anacortes Family Center. For the last 3 months, the Anacortes Police Department and the Anacortes Family Center have worked to contact individuals in our community that are in need of a variety of social services. As of last Friday, July 30th, there have been 13 referrals for a total of 18 individuals sent to the Anacortes Family Center by the Anacortes Police. At the peak of our local homeless issue, there were 10 RVs on T Avenue being used as a residence. There were 2 vehicles on T Avenue being used as a residence. And there were 2 tent campers on private property in the adjacent area. Today, there are 4 RVs on T Avenue, 2 vehicles, and we worked with property owners and the tent campers to get them to other homeless options. The 4 RVs that remain, 2 RV owners have been issued infractions after the Anacortes Police Department met criteria set by the 9th Circuit Court. One of those infractions is due in Anacortes Municipal Court later this month. The Anacortes Police Department and the Anacortes Family Center has had success stories where individuals are now in more stable living environments as a result of this agreement. The most notable of those even gave a presentation at the most recent HACS committee meeting. Anacortes Family Center Director Johnson and I continue to work together, identifying ways that services offered through the City of Anacortes and Anacortes Family Center agreement can be expanded or refined to meet the best needs of our community. I believe the first quarter of this agreement has been effective and was instrumental in getting numerous homeless individuals from our streets to more suitable locations. I've included the tracking sheets submitted both by the Family Center and the Police Department in your council packets. Is there any further questions?
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Walters.
In our agreement with the Family Center was supposed to provide us quarterly updates on a variety of metrics, which were to be defined later, but which were to include at least the numbers of individuals served. We have this one particular tracking sheet related to T Avenue, but assumedly that's not the entire universe of people that the Family Center has been serving under this agreement. Do we have metrics that we are getting from the Family Center, or are we collecting those metrics? And do you have any definition on what those metrics are?
We're still trying to determine the most effective metrics to use. At this time, we have the number of adults served, the number of children served, the services specifically that has been provided to those individuals. If there was a referral out to another organization beyond the Family Center, they're tracking referrals that come in from the city by police department and fire department, and then other city referrals in general. At this point, those are the only criteria that have been tracked. And from the materials sent to you, you'll see notes by the case manager on providing more detail on some of these specific individuals. I realize that most of the individuals that you see listed here are specific to T Avenue, but that is not the sole scope of individuals that have been referred to the Family Center.
Mayor Gear.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, and I think the main crux of the contract is when when the Anacortes PD is in contact. So it's not necessarily going to capture the direct contact with Anacortes Family Center or through other means. But kind of to Mr. Walters' point, are we capturing beyond T Avenue, or were there any more beyond T Avenue on this list? I think I see one on here, but maybe you can help me. Or what do we miss? I guess that's what, I just want to make sure that's what we should be capturing anytime the Anacortes PD is interacting with the family center for referrals, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Okay. Because I think that's what the contract says. I don't have it in front of me, but it makes sense. So I guess that's the feedback on this kind of tracking information, and I trust they're helping you put this together.
It's a cooperative effort.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Walters.
And then can you give us some flavor as to your perception, because we talk about this a little bit in the contract as well, about the level of increase that we have achieved by funding this program? Is the family center being utilized more often, and if so, how much benefit are we getting for our dollar here?
I believe that the use by our department for the family center is dramatically increased. Prior to this agreement, as you well know, there was 3 individuals that we worked with the family center on, and since that time, we are now up to 18. So since the agreement has started, there's been 15 new individuals referred to the family center that are receiving support in various means, to include housing, getting assistance with stable employment, substance abuse, mental health treatment is one area that we've identified that we are looking for ways to improve. Director Johnson and I have been searching for additional funding sources to help him put that resource on his staff to make it more accessible when our officers are in contact with individuals that need mental health services in the field.
Mayor Gear?
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Close enough. So I just I appreciate the different kind of reporting ways you've done it here. I think you've got to it's confidential information, so you can't share as much as Public Works could or whatnot. But could you speak a little bit, and this is because I have some experience being on the HACS committee and then talking with the Family Center. Could you speak or expand on the fact that, yes, it's 15 new people, but the steps involved with building trust and the number of times each of these clients have to be spoken with, or how often they're meeting? Because I think that is missing from this reporting format. Because from our experience with the HACS committee, one of the major things is building trust, right, with some of these folks, and it takes a number of visits to do so. So I would love it if you could share that with the public, at least kind of how that process works to reach these people and then actually provide services and follow through.
Yeah, so we have partnered with the social services coordinator from the Family Center to go out into the areas where homeless individuals have congregated and attempted contact with each of these individuals. It happens at least once, potentially twice a week, and they don't have a set schedule, so trying to catch all of them at the same time isn't realistic. But what we have found is you have to build a rapport and establish trust with some of these individuals to get them to engage in the services that are offered. It's taken multiple attempts, even for the referrals that were successful in getting them into additional services. The one most notable success that I highlighted in my presentation to you took at least 3 meetings before they were willing to go through the referral process. And from that, they're now into the First Step Center in Burlington. One individual is getting some much needed medical care, and the stability that that has offered has allowed the other needs to occur. So we've established that stability in housing is key to the success of other services that we can offer them.
Eric here.
Mr. Walters.
So I think it would be great if we could capture that data, the number of contacts that are necessary to achieve these results, something akin to the number of hours spent. It doesn't have to be hours spent, but just something that conveys how much effort goes into achieving one of these outcomes, evolving those metrics, also further defining on this, for instance, on this sheet, what each of these categories means. Did we refer out services provided? Maybe break down the type of services, those kinds of things. I assume this is all work that the family center would do as part of their tracking and provide to the police department rather than the police department doing this tracking itself.
Correct.
Can I just ask one more question, I think, for the public? Does the family center social worker typically go out with a police officer, or do they go out on their own, or can you kind of speak to that, what that looks like when you go and visit folks that are in need of the service?
It has occurred both ways, with the family center social worker going out with one of our officers. In the initial stage of this program, I was the person that went out with the outreach coordinator and established a rapport with these individuals. I've since had many of the things that I have to give my attention to. That's been delegated to our day shift patrol supervisor as a collateral duty. And they will go out attempting contact with these individuals, especially individuals that are perhaps unknown to us, where there's no history or background that we can provide the family center as far as any safety concerns. For others that are lower risk, the family center has gone out on their own without our presence and initiated contact with these individuals, continuing to try to build that trust and seeing what their needs are as far as if they've changed since previous contacts. So to answer your question, we've tried both methods, and there's success with both methods.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I think that's the part that probably needs a little bit more backup, is the number of contacts. Because this is great information, I think it's an excellent start, and no surprise working with a great organization like the Family Center and the Anacortes PD making fantastic progress. So it's all good stuff, but I think the one thing that I think we're all seeing on council is, boy, 14 contacts. It just looks like, but we know there's a whole lot more work that's going on in there. So if we capture that, I think it'll be better for all of us as we, look to modify or extend the contract.
I think a fair estimation is probably at least 4 to 5 contacts per referral
exactly.
has gone into
Yeah,
success.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chief. If you want to move on to the next part of your presentation, there's a lot of changes in state legislation, and I was hoping you could talk to us about that this evening.
So I had drafted a letter that has been included in your packets for this evening, which offered a lot of detail regarding new laws resulting from the 2020-2021 legislative session. As a result of the detail that was in that letter to you, I won't take up a large amount of council time tonight, but I would like to go over some highlights of some of the legislative changes that have occurred recently. This letter will also be distributed to community members this week following tonight's meeting to aid our citizens in better understanding the new laws and how it relates to their day-to-day activities. As long as I've been a member of the Anacortes Police Department, department leaders have emphasized the expectation that department members will do what was morally right and shall not violate trust given to us by our community. In the rare circumstance that there are those that fail and they do not deserve to wear our badge and uniform. I do not believe that these new laws were directed specifically at the Anacortes Police Department, or for that matter, any law enforcement agency in Skagit County. I think it's important to note that we do not protect bad examples of officers, as some supporters of more restrictive laws may suggest. In reality, no one wants to rid our profession of bad officers more than we do, as it brings discredit to the good work that law enforcement does every day. Highlights of the new legislation under House Bill 1054, more commonly referred to as the Tactics Bill. Even prior to the new laws that took effect on July 25th, the safety of our community members was a higher priority than simple apprehension of a suspect. House Bill 1054 has seriously limited the officer's ability to consider variables that were previously available to them. For example, a violent felon suspected of numerous burglaries, we would have the option to chase that person if it was safe to do so, and considering variables present at that time. Example, those variables would include, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, the roadway is dry, there's no other traffic on the roadway at the time. This would be a low risk for us to try to apprehend this person that is obviously a threat to the safety and property interests for members of our community. Now, in the example provided to you in my letter, burglary suspect is allowed to continue if he refuses to pull over, even though at that time we may know he has stolen a homeowner's firearm, vehicle, cash, jewelry, and other miscellaneous items. Except for a very specific list of crimes, officers are no longer allowed to use their judgment regarding risk versus reward in the apprehension of suspects. In regard to House Bill 1310, more commonly known as the Use of Force Bill, going forward, involvement by Anacortes police officers in non-criminal matters will be substantially limited. I want to emphasize this is not the choice of the officers, but rather the set of circumstances that were given to us. Resolutions for non-criminal matters will make community partnerships more important than ever. The individual having a mental health crisis at 4 o'clock in the morning still needs assistance, and we need to develop a process for getting mental health responders that are willing to answer that call at 4 o'clock in the morning when resources have traditionally been limited. This concern should not be confused with law enforcement whining because they're not getting their way, as some critics would characterize it. This concern is about people who need help getting it and victims being protected because we see the need for those things daily. As I mentioned to you more than once in my letter, your police department remains committed to the community's safety, providing a high level of service within the boundaries that we are given by the laws of the state of Washington. I'm willing to answer any questions you have regarding the letter that was submitted to your packets.
Mayor Gear? Thank you. Thank you, Chief Floyd. I really appreciate and would encourage the public to look at the videos that the links were included to in today's packet. There are 4 short episodes detailing the results of this new legislation that the state legislature passed this year that most of went into effect on July 25th. Super helpful. A A couple of things that I think could be highlighted are the definition of use of force. And you could talk a little bit about that for us. That would be great. My understanding now that I watched the video is that it's any kind of physical restraint, even such as grabbing a suspect by the arm. It's not all about tasers and things like that. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great, so we have an understanding of what that means. And then another thing was in the tactics episode, they talked about how domestic violence and misdemeanor assault is not something that a person can't be pursued, but if it's a misdemeanor felony, they can. And so misdemeanor assault is defined, I think, as not causing serious or substantial injury like broken bones or unconsciousness. And I think there is a lot of uncertainty and maybe some unintended consequences of some of this legislation that may be explored at the Attorney General's level, and there might be some changes made. So it seems like some of this is a little bit fluid and a little bit tricky to interpret and for the public to understand the actual results of this legislation. So I just said a lot, but I guess if you could talk a little bit about use of force and what that means, that would be great.
Absolutely. I would agree there is a lot of confusion regarding the new legislation, and there has been numerous requests to the Attorney General's office for clarification. I can share with you that while these laws went into effect and we were required to adhere to them as of July 25th, the Attorney General's office has until July 2022 to provide us with model policy on how to put these laws into action in our day-to-day activities. So there's a lot of ambiguity and question as far as how we are to apply these to our current activities. As far as our abilities as they currently stand, if you look at conviction for a crime, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. So you're nearly at 100% there that a jury is going to have to be beyond reasonable doubt to give a conviction. At the other end of the spectrum, we have reasonable suspicion, which would be best explained as more likely than not that this incident occurred and this person is responsible for it. If you were to put a number equivalent to it, maybe be 51%. In the middle, but closer to 100%, would be probable cause for arrest. That is what's required now for us to physically detain someone, or for a very small, specific list of crimes, be able to pursue that vehicle. We have to have probable cause for their arrest, probable cause that that individual is in the vehicle that we want to chase, and that has to be established, communicated, and approved by a supervisor before that chase can begin. So it's a lot of steps that are very complex that have to occur in a short period of time. And as far as investigatory processes that have been affected by this, if we were to show up to a scene where there has been a crime in the past, if there was reasonable suspicion, the suspect was described as a white male in a blue car, and a mile from the scene, you see a white male in a blue car, we are approaching the level of reasonable suspicion to where we'd be able to temporarily detain that person while we investigate further. That temporary detention is probably in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 minutes at most. But as it stands currently, we would not be able to restrict that person's ability to leave or movement without probable cause for arrest. So really the investigative process, while the facts are still coming in and situations are evolving, has been significantly hampered.
I watched the 4 episodes from the Kent Police Department and Mayor, and they were incredibly informative. So I highly recommend everyone watching them. I think it really highlights the challenges of this new legislation and how our police departments are going to interpret it. But I guess moving forward, we know we have to have body cams, and there's a lot of data and FOIA requests for that and whatnot. But can you speak a little, have you guys thought, have police departments thought about this new kind of, these new rules about needing more detectives and what that looks like, since you cannot apprehend people as quickly, you have to let them go. Do you have any insight to that, or is that still kind of 6 months out? It seems like it, from watching those videos, that you're looking at a very different way of handling cases.
I believe that there is many unintended consequences with this new legislation, and our hope is that some of these things are going to be corrected or clarified in subsequent legislative sessions. Having said that, that could be nearly a year away, and so it is going to be more labor intensive for our officers to try to address these crimes. I think that in many locations across the state, you're already seeing some of the fallout from the new laws. In the city of Seattle, the first 36 hours that these laws were in effect, they had 6 shootings, a total of 10 individuals shot. That's high even by Seattle standards. And we've seen it in other communities where historically there has not been the same rate of violent crime, most recently in Kirkland. So I believe it's going to have effects. We are not going to know immediately what those effects are, and we're going to have to adapt to them and be fluid as the status of things change.
So I know tomorrow you're going to get, or this week, get this information to the public in a way that they can have this information and start to understand it as we work through it as a community.
Correct. So the same information that I have included for your packets this evening will be distributed to the rest of our community this week.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Walters.
I definitely think that the timeline has been too fast to figure out these new requirements and exactly how to read the law. But I have spoken with a couple of our legislators and encouraging them to look at revisions. There seems to me to be a lot of good stuff in the legislation, as you point out, that is consistent with the existing practice of the Anacortes Police Department, but maybe not all police departments. But also the vehicle pursuit, the use of force, and that new protocol for de-escalation procedure that seems to box officers in a way that is probably counterproductive, especially for officers that are trying to follow the law. And I applaud you and other police chiefs for your conservative reading of the law, which I think is entirely appropriate, both to respect the rights of the public, who the law is intended to preserve, but also to protect officers from accusations of noncompliance with the law. But the legislators I've talked to, I think, fully expect to be making revisions, and it's unfortunate that the sequence is we pass a law, it goes into effect, and then we have to make revisions quite a bit later. But I do think it's the responsibility of us as elected officials to talk to our legislators, to lobby our legislators. We are not allowed to ask the public to lobby legislators, so I don't want to do that, although people are certainly able to do so on their own. But I think it is very useful that we be fully informed on how practices may change, and maybe if we get some interim guidance from the Attorney General, that would be very useful, even if it's not the final guidance on the timeline laid out in the legislation, because it does seem to me that there could be a little bit of wiggle room in a couple of those areas that could provide a little bit more support to police departments as we wait for revisions to the legislation. So we ought to be continually reaching out to the Attorney General as well.
And as I included in my letter to you, regardless of our personal opinion of what these new laws are, we are more than happy to work within the confines that is set by the state. We would just like to know what some of those are, because they're very unclear.
Mayor Gear?
Mr. Miller.
But one of the things we can do as a legislative body in Anacortes is make sure you have the tools that you need to adjust. And one of them was kind of alluded to, that labor intensive. I mean, just, you know, it's not really related to any of the House bills or Senate bills, but the Blake decision, for example, that you have to have 2 referrals, you know, before making an arrest. So that right there, you know, you could do the math pretty quickly on additional labor required of officers in the field. Just interpreting, you know, just interpreting the use of force, whether it's defensive tactics training, that kind of thing, or what you're adding additional hours to your de-escalation training that you're already mandated to do. So I think that's where we can help. And then, of course, body cameras, which, again, you've been very proactive, and appreciate that. And I like your targets early rather than waiting until the last minute. So I think that's great. That's what, you know, continue to provide that feedback to us so we can provide the tools that you need to get through this before at some point our legislature maybe takes some adjustments to this.
Yes, Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. One of the things I took from the videos is that part of this legislation is intended to reduce some calls to police officers for things like medical aid and mental health crises that they may not be able to respond to as they have in the past, which underscores gaps in services that we have. If the police aren't going to be able to handle certain situations, who is? So that's, of course, one of the things that HACS group is working on, who fills those gaps. And we approved the fire department community paramedic program, which I believe has been successful already. And we need more mental health professionals out in the field. We need better services for people with behavioral and mental health issues, and how we can best do that is a job that we can address as a city legislature too. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Mayor Gear?
Yes, Mr. Walters.
And I understand that the legislature put more than $100 million into that as well. Of course, it is going to trail all of this by quite some time. You got to hire the people. We got to build new facilities. We got to train people, educate people so that we have qualified applicants for those new jobs that will be created wherever they are created in the statewide system of mental health. So it's going to lag way behind these changes. But thank God that they put that money in there, because it is a serious problem. And I tend to think that we need further changes to the involuntary treatment statute as well, to get us to a point where we can get people into behavioral health, largely mental health treatment. I do not see a path forward for a lot of people that we encounter on a daily basis without involuntary treatment for mental illness. And that's going to require substantial new resources, probably beyond what the legislature has already done.
Well, Chief, thank you. This is a great presentation, and we look forward to you coming back on a regular basis. I know we just referred to the body cams, and for the public, body cameras were required by the state of Washington for all police departments by January 1st of 2022. Chief Floyd is well in the works of, he has found funding. We have figured out what body cameras we're going to use, and he will come back in a few weeks and do a presentation to the council on that. And his goal is to have the department up and running with body cameras by December 1st. So we have a month to kind of work out the bugs, so to speak, before the final date of implementation by the state. So that's probably our next big challenge. So welcome aboard, Chief. Welcome, new legislation, body cameras. You know, you're going to be busy. But any other questions for the Chief tonight? I really appreciate the work you're doing with the Family Center and in the community. And thank you for the good work this summer with our homeless population. We've really made probably the most substantial inroads I've ever seen with actually getting people connected to resources, not just asked to move along. So we can be really proud of that. All right. Anything else for this evening? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is a little lighter in nature. July 21st, I had the honor of being in another Zoom meeting, which we've all become very acclimated to, but this was a particularly important Zoom meeting. This took place at 10 a.m. here, and it took place with the city of Kermanic, Romania, which I think was at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. in Romania that day. 8 p.m. So there I was in my office at 10 a.m. The citizens of Kermanic were sitting in their city council chambers in Kermanic, Romania at 8 p.m., and we had a festive interchange of sister city to sister city. And we met to become official sister cities after a very long relationship, I think dating back to the year 2003. And before I ask the council to act on a resolution authorizing this, I would like to invite members of our Sister Cities Association to come up and maybe talk to the council for a moment. Maybe tell a little more about the history and why this sister city relationship is so important. It is our 5th sister city, but we have actual members of our community that were born in Kermanic that actually live and work here now. And we've had many cultural exchanges over the year. Former Councilman Brad Adams and myself visited Kermanic 2 years ago, along with John Loverick and the Sister City Association and his lovely bride. So at this time, welcome, Mr. Adams. It's so nice to see you here in City Council chambers.
Thank you. Do I say my address and all that? Yeah.
Oh, sure. Let's just do it for old time's sake.
2201 30th Street. My name is Brad Adams.
Welcome.
There's a lot of people very excited about this resolution and bringing Kilmarnock into the Sister Cities group officially. I know there's been a lot of hard work put into that, and I just wanted to share a few words from my perspective. I first became involved with the Kilmarnock city in 2011, so it was 10 years ago, when they brought a group of students from the children's school to our community with some staff members as well. And our neighbor Sharon Howard, Ruth Ann and I, she knocked on our door and asked if we could host a couple girls for 2 days. Well, we misheard it because it was actually 2 weeks, but it turned out to be an incredible experience. The people that we met, the host families in Anacortes plus the people from Kilmarnock, Romania were just amazing. And it really brought us in to want to be members of Sister Cities. And so we did that. And then 2012, we went and visited Kilmarnock for the first time. Well, I did. I guess there had been another visit a few years earlier. Dwayne knows the history of that, and Johnny more than I do. But it was another great experience. The community took us in. We were able to see some beautiful sights, such as Dracula's Castle, the Parliament building in Bucharest. There's just so many things we saw. But it was really about meeting the people and getting to know them and just their hearts and their compassion for living and welcoming us as citizens from America. And then in 2017, the group came back to Anacortes, and I hope some of you saw them perform, because they did perform at the Arts Festival, such as they did in 2011, and also at the Skagit County Fair and some performing arts centers. And Johnny and Anna Maria really took on the planning of that trip, and it was an amazing experience again for Anacortes and the citizens of Kilmarnock. And then in 2019, we went again over to Kilmarnock, Romania, and it was part of a trip that also took us to Vela Luka in Croatia, as well as some other communities. And that trip was really special because we met their mayor, who was a new mayor in Kilmarnock, and he was just so welcoming to us and gave us such a great experience. And if you've never been able to experience an Eastern European community and really inside the town and getting to know the people, it's just something you take away from it that's very special. So, some of the things I appreciate about Kilmarnock is the people, of course, the culture, the dance. You can't go to a party without dancing included. And I'm a terrible dancer, but I actually can figure out some of the moves, so it's fun to be part of that. Just the resourcefulness of the people, their work ethic, their kindness, the tight-knit community that they have is something that we can learn from as a sister city, and how they come together as a community just to survive and make things happen and help each other out. I think we miss some of that in America, but when you see it in a city like Kilmarnock, it really is inspiring. So, and I like the lifetime friends we've developed friendships with. A lot of the students we've hosted, they all call us our American parents. You know, they love staying in touch with us. The Children's Club School in Kilmarnock is really the heart of this relationship. They teach their kids lifetime skills in culture, and those students remain friends for the rest of their lives. I'm sorry, I'm over 3 minutes, I think, but being a member of Anacortes Sister Cities has made me a better person. It's gave me a better perspective of life and a greater appreciation of other cultures. So I would encourage other people to get involved in sister cities as well, because you do take a lot out of it. Then I just wanted to say hi to a few of my Romanian friends. They'll probably never see this, but I just wanted to say the names of them because their names are different than ours. It's you know, culturally, countries have different names. So this will only take me 30 seconds, but I did want to say, if I was saying hi to them here, I'd be saying hi to Angela, her son Christian, of course, Johnny and Anna Maria, Andra, Titi, Stefana, Ustin, Christy, Adriana, Anda, Anna Maria's parents, Constantine and Mariana, Vlad, Marius, Irina, Madalena, Andrea, Adi, Alina, Florin, Bogdan, Gabriella, Iona, Sylvia, and Soren. So you can tell that you just want to go there, don't you? All right, so thank you for all the hard work that you put into this.
Thank you. John Lovebrick, who's the president of the Anacortes Sister City Association. Welcome, John.
Thank you. You want my address too?
No.
First of all, yeah, for the general public that don't know, you know, Anacortes Sister Cities Association is a part of the city. Without the mayors and their signings, it wouldn't happen. You know, we would just have our friendship protocol as we had in the past. So, you know, I want people to know that that's what's important, you know. And we're part of a greater association, Sister Cities International. And I just want to speak briefly about Sister Cities International. Sister Cities International, their mission is to promote peace through mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation, one individual and one community at a time. Since 1956, so 65 years ago, Sister Cities International has worked to create exchanges that create community impact and kindle lifelong friendships. Sister Cities International was created at President Eisenhower's 1956 White House Conference on Citizen Diplomacy. Eisenhower envisioned an organization that could be the hub of peace and prosperity by creating bonds between people from different cities around the world. By forming these relationships, President Eisenhower reasoned that people of different cultures could celebrate and appreciate their differences and build partnerships that would lessen the chance of new conflicts. So connect globally and thrive locally. So I just want to say on a personal note, you know, I think we have a really active sister city here. You could go to a place like Seattle that I think has something like 26 sister cities, but I don't think they're very active. You know, and we're real careful here to not have too many because we don't want to make a weak link with one of our other cities. So we really want to make sure that we have a really good connection. And through all of our sister cities, they're all a little bit different relationships. We're celebrating a few milestones this year. We're 30 years old. We're also celebrating 30 years with our first sister city, Lomonosov, Russia, which has primarily been a adult exchange. We've had groups come here. We've had singing groups and whatnot. We've also celebrated this year with Sydney, Canada, 25 years. Again, not nearly different culture as us, but a long-standing relationship, especially with the ferries. Japan, we have a really good student program for middle school students that learn and work for 2 years. They learn a little bit about the culture, a little bit about the language. They get the homestay, and that's what's a big part about Sister Cities, bringing someone into your home and vice versa, so you can live and breathe the way they do every day. And that's how you really learn their culture. And so those kids have, the Japanese come here one summer, and then the American kids go there the next summer. Our relationship with Croatia, which is where my family's from, was a natural thing. One time when Anacortes began in the late 1800s, 25% of the city were Croatians. So it was a natural thing for us to establish that in 2004. And now, coming to Romania, it was just a group of people. There was one Romanian who visited Anacortes, and through one of our past presidents, Don Lapworth, he got to know this Romanian, and I'm just going to make this a short story because there'll be a story in the newspaper this next week. But they went on an adult trip to Romania, and primarily visiting the northern part of Romania, not where Komarnik is, but they traveled through there. They came to the children's club where my wife was the choreographer and the dance teacher, and they were kind of new to starting. They didn't have many costumes or many resources. So that was a big impact on Don Lapworth and members of Sister Cities who were part of that trip. And so he came here and he said, hey, can we help this group out? I know we don't have a sister city with them. We don't have any connection, but I think, if we have some sort of funds that we can allocate, we can get them started with some costumes or something. And so, that we helped them there, and, the talk about them coming here kept happening, and eventually, they did come here in 2011. And had it not been for that trip in 2011, I wouldn't have met my wife. So, but anyway, so that's the short story. We've had several exchanges of them coming here and vice versa. It's going to be a great learning experience for all of us. I encourage people in the community to join Sister Cities and have a chance to travel. I had the chance to travel with Lori last 2019. So, and mayors of the past as well. So, I just hope that you've learned a little bit tonight. I appreciate you listening to me, and thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that. And truly, of all my experiences as mayor, traveling to our sister cities has been incredibly impactful in my life. Just communities, we all love our communities. We all value our families. We all have similar values, no matter if we live in Japan or Croatia or Romania or right here in Anacortes. The mayor of Harmonic and I laughed about infrastructure, and if you have good roads, your citizens are happy. I said in Romania too, and he said, well, there's a city problem, it's the mayor's problem. So it's just been the highlight of the last few years for me. And with that, I want to introduce a resolution tonight that I hope the council will approve, and I will read it to you. That is resolution number 3045, a resolution authorizing and directing the execution that certain agreement by and between the City of Anacortes, Washington, USA, and the City of Komarnik, Romania. Whereas the residents of the City of Anacortes and Komarnik have traveled to each other's cities numerous times since 2006 for cultural and friendship reasons. And whereas the Anacortes Sister Cities Association and the Komarnik Children's Club have enjoyed international friendship protocol since 2011. And whereas the City of Anacortes and Komarnik have agreed to become sister cities to establish friendly ties and cultural cooperation. And whereas an agreement between these two cities uniting Anacortes and Komarnik in a formal sister city relationship is appropriate and in the best interests of the citizens of both cities. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Anacortes that certain agreement by and between the City of Anacortes, Washington, United States of America, and Karamanec, Romania, a copy of which attached hereto and by the reference made as part hereof, to be in all respects ratified and approved, and the mayor and the city clerk are authorized and directed to execute same as the official act and deed of the City of Anacortes on this second day of August 2021. And that is after we already assigned an agreement between the two cities. So at this time, I will hand it over to the council.
Mayor Garrett,
Mr. Walters.
I move approval of the resolution as presented.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Walters, a second by Ms. Moulton. Is there any additional discussion this evening? Ms. Hunt, would you take the vote?
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Ms. Clema McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carries.
What a great day for Anacortes and Karamanec. So I have one other request, John. We're going to need a Romanian flag here for the
That's
city
right.
council chambers.
And I just wanted to say one other thing that I left
Yes,
out.
go ahead.
My in-laws are here visiting Anacortes, so I think it's even more special that they get to see this happening. Her Anna Maria's dad's
Anna
here.
Maria and Anna Maria's dad.
So hopefully we'll be able to get the official document that they signed sent here in time, so all of our signatures can be on it, and it can be taken back with them to the mayor's office.
Oh, yeah, that
So-
would be wonderful.
Hopefully, if the mail can work fast enough.
Can they send a digital copy, maybe?
Yeah,
don't know.
perhaps, yeah.
Okay,
So-
we'll work on getting that done.
All right.
That's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Congratulations. So at this time, is there any other business this evening, anything for the good of the order? Well, thank you, everyone, and at this time, I will adjourn the Anacortes City Council meeting. Have a good evening.